Welcome to Spilled Ink.
All right, well, welcome back to another episode of Spilled Ink. I am joined by Kennedy Catholic head coach Al Snow, who obviously, if you follow basketball, you know who Al is. Al, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, man. I'm excited to be here. It's always a pleasure to see you, man, and try to do something cool and fun with you, man. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And I think before we get started, just given the timing, I think we got to give a shout out to Slick Watts and what he meant to this community. I have been thinking a lot about it the past couple days and
sure.
feeling sad that I never really got to know him, right? For as many basketball people as I know around here and as many times as I saw him at different events, I never got a chance to talk to him and that kind of bums me out. So obviously, with your ties to this community,
Sure.
what did he mean? Maybe you got a good story.
I mean, he's always just been around and been someone you could always see at any and every sporting event. He always was supportive, always with a funny story, right? Um, and just always just positive, just great energy, always willing to crack a joke, laugh with you. So I mean, obviously he'll be incredibly missed. I know he was going through it for some time, so my prayer is that he's in a much better place. I also uh, extend my condolences to Donald because he's somebody who I grew up admiring. I watched growing up. I was one of the really younger guys who was into high school hoops. I was probably ahead of my peers in terms of that. And so Donald's somebody I spent a lot of time watching growing up. So we still have a relationship. So that family, I feel for. He was a proud grandfather, proud father. So uh, more than anything, yeah, I just would send my condolences. But he was a ball of light, man. He was always, rocking the bright colors, and he had bright and a big personality. So he'll be missed. Yeah.
Yeah, every time he would walk into a gym, everything would stop. Like, at least momentarily, everyone would stop and there's Slick, and then everybody like, oh, that's great. Yeah, he's here. Okay, back to whatever we were doing. And the one thing that really stood out to me, I was reading a lot about him
Yeah.
and the fact that after, he was done playing, he spent years and years and years as a physical
Yep.
education
PE teacher.
teacher. Yeah,
Yep.
and then in thinking about that, and then Donald and that family's legacy, in some ways, would you agree that they're um, some of the founding members of the Seattle basketball community, just in the way that they've been around and kind of kept it going?
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, they like you said, um, he was around, not exactly on that championship team, but with that group. Um, and their presence was always felt, right? They were always impactful. They were always touching kids. They were always involved. They were always present. So yeah, I would agree.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And not to, obviously, I said also send out my condolences. Donald Watts was one of my favorite players. Watching him as he was like kind of my first introduction to Washington basketball.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
and really, really appreciated watching him play, and actually got to play in a noon hoops game at UW with him one time.
Okay.
And it was that was fun because it was Will was playing, Brandon showed up.
Nice.
It was, I think Kelsey Plum was out there that day,
That
right?
makes sense. Yeah.
And
She was always hooping with the guys. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just nice to like be a part of that. It was not quite the level of those games that were always in the East Gym, which I'll
Right.
talk to you a little bit later. But yeah, but it was, so
Can I ask you a question?
yeah.
What, as my high school coach would say, in the Sam Hale were you doing out there?
Yes. So funny story about that. So I worked in
Hmm.
for the athletic department. So I got
Yep.
my start there. I was Steve Sarkeesian's blogger his last season with the
Sure.
Huskies, and they kept me on. And so I was the director of content creation. And I'm not exactly sure how it happened, but whoever was orchestrating the noon hoops like staff games,
Yep.
um, they left, and actually it was typically organized by the football team.
Yes, it
So I
was.
became the commissioner of noon hoops at UW, and we had man we had some runs.
Yep.
It was, we got Justin Glenn who played football. Donald would come occasionally. Will was there
Almost
constantly.
daily. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
remember.
like I'm not saying that I'm good, but I
Okay.
can, when I'm in shape, I can shoot it enough to hold my own.
Okay.
I had some memorable noon hoops moments in that East Gym.
Okay. Okay.
Do you remember Jackie Narid? I can't remember her. She got married,
Huh.
but she worked on the UW women's staff. And man, we had this play that we would run. Like she would set a pick for me, and I would come off and shoot it. And oh man, like I don't want to make this about me, but I love it. Like there is no better
Sounds like
feeling.
she had no idea what she was doing.
I mean, fair enough, fair enough. And so, going back to you, we talked earlier this year about taking the Kennedy job and
Sure.
what that meant for you. Talk a little bit about, how did the season end up? And,
Yeah.
before we started recording, we were talking about how, being at the state tournament and, that has to have some motivation, trying to get that team there next year
Yeah.
in the future.
I mean, yeah, I think we did talk about what got me there in the first place, right? Um, it was really cool to just be at the dome this year in this new role. I will say I feel really good about the season we had. I feel like we overachieved, to be honest. I think that the expectations weren't all that great, and um, I think we pulled together a group who really bought in, who really worked hard with and for each other. And I mean, we knocked off Kentwood, we knocked off Auburn, who at the time hadn't been beaten in this state. We were the only team to beat them in
Mhm.
our league. We finished second place, and up and until then, the last I would say 6 years, I believe this team hadn't finished better than sixth. The best place they finished in the league was, yeah, I think sixth. So
Mhm.
in an 8 team league, right? So to grab second in year one, I would have to say, yeah, we overachieved.
Mhm. And is that, I think when we talked, so it was on MLK Day during those games, and a lot of it was the buy-in, right?
Hmm.
And that seems like that just continued to carry through.
Yeah, well, you're always when you come into something new, you're trying to figure out what you can keep and where you can make an impact towards change without making the kids wildly uncomfortable in terms of like just being able to do the things consistently to be as successful as this particular group could possibly be. And so while we married some of those things, um, I think moving forward, a lot of those things will change, right? But I think with this group, um, they did a really good job holding each other accountable. We had 10 seniors, so I think it was important for them to have a winning experience, a positive experience with basketball, one that they hadn't had. And so they leave feeling really good about it. We call that group the foundation
Mhm.
because that's exactly what they did was set a great, healthy foundation of and what we hope is a wonderful future at Kennedy Catholic. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, and now with the foundation leaving, what do you have coming up in the pipeline?
I mean, it's a private school, so until kids are completely locked in, not a lot I can share,
Hmm.
right? Um, but I'm really excited. I can tell you that much. I don't know if you can tell by the smile on my face, but I'm really excited about where we're headed.
I can
Yeah,
see that. I can see it. Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. Uh, and speaking of the Tacoma Dome, I thought I continue to be blown away that every time I turn a corner, there's another guy that played. I was
Yep.
like, I was looking at the Garfield bench and I was like, I know that guy. And I was like, man, that's Tremaine Isabel. And seeing Jamal celebrate with the trophy
Right.
and then now seeing you on the sideline and it continues to blow me away what y'all are doing in the community, right? Like that how these former players keep giving back. And I feel like I can't comment on that enough and give you guys enough credit. And, you know,
I'll say it's the way we were raised, and what I mean by that, not the way we were raised by our parents necessarily, right?
mhm,
But the way we were raised in this basketball community. So I'm sure I'm sure you've heard this many times, but I remember for me, Doug Christie was the guy who uh, wasn't always around
mhm,
necessarily, but when he was present and he was with you, right? And so he had a private gym out in Federal Way. Um, Jamal would go play. I was the youngest guy there that they allowed to play. All the other guys were at the time current professionals. So you would have, uh, Jerome Kersey. You would have, I mean, names that many people maybe don't know now, but these guys were NBA players and a lot of overseas guys like Brent Merritt, like Tony Harris, rest in peace. Some legendary Seattle basketball names or Northwest basketball names, all in that gym.
mhm,
And his agent J.R. Harris, he would run the gym, and he would call the fouls. He may call one foul the entire day, right? So you had to come with your hard hat. You had to be a man, and just compete your butt off, or you wouldn't be invited back. So
mhm.
I can remember, I can remember that was the first time I was ever dunked on in that gym. Yeah, but I guess what I'm trying to say is Doug Christie was the guy initially who kind of established like this kind of culture of giving back and grabbing the next guy and making sure you gave him the games to excel and succeed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What if you don't mind me asking, who dunked on you?
Tony Harris.
Okay.
So at the time, man, these kids wouldn't believe it now, but at the time, I was kind of known for running guys down and blocking their shots on the backboard. You can find the articles with pictures of me chasing down 7 foot guys in Franklin Garfield games and blocking their dunk attempts against the glass. So I thought I was going to do that to Tony Harris. He was a grown man. I found out the difference between a boy and a man pretty quickly. Yeah. So I tell guys now, man. Matter of fact, I just told somebody the other day, young guy, um, you haven't played at a high enough level yet if you haven't been dunked on. It's inevitable. If you're competing and you actually care to win and you're playing hard, it's coming.
Mhm.
And it came for me. So
And again, did not play at any kind of like high level, but I spent a summer working at the pro club, and
yeah.
you probably remember that dudes used to go out there and work out. And
Hmm.
so that was when Michael Dickerson and Jason
Mm.
Terry and Dan Dickow he was still at UW. He hadn't transferred yet.
Okay.
And so I got to play a little 2-on-2, and they I forget who they were, other like D1 guys,
Okay.
and they were kind enough to let me hit a few shots. Um, and then I had to play one-on-one with Dickow, and I'm like, I don't really know who this guy is, but like let's give it a shot.
All right.
And I mean, he let me get a couple of threes off on the last point. He jab stepped and went to the basket and dunked it, and I was like, what? Like who? I was like, okay, this is the different, like this is the
Right.
gap, right? This is a
Yep.
white guy about as tall as me dunking
Yep.
on me, and I'm like, oh,
For
okay,
game.
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and I think that's to go back to your earlier point, or maybe, oh, you know what, I saw it on an Instagram video that you shared on your, about the physicality that you have to have,
Mm. Hmm.
and just sort of that tenacity to if you're going to play at a high level, right? Like that's how you finish off a game of one-on-one, right?
Yep. Yeah, I think that's kind of been one of the things that's been lacking. I was saying like youth hoops lately around here for sure, but I think in general is like the necessary level of physicality. It's become kind of hands off, and I'm not saying it needs to be rugby or football, but it's you certainly have to. It's a contact sport, right? So
Hmm.
you certainly have to bring an adequate level of physicality if you actually care to succeed. And when I say succeed, I'm talking about winning, not just playing, right?
Hmm.
Winning. Yeah.
I mean, I grew up on the Bad Boys and Pacers Knicks, right? Like I remember the physical days of the NBA, and I appreciate it. As much
Yeah.
as I like to see 120-point games, um, I sort of miss that edge, that you used to get in those days.
Yeah, I just want to see somebody actually try to stop a guy from scoring. Like that's a part of the game too.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, I think it's important.
Yeah, no, no, I feel that.
Everybody who spends time in the gym has what they call has what these kids call a bag, right? But I want to see someone disrupt your bag, right?
Hmm.
I don't want to see you just get to go through every move in your bag as you please. Somebody's got to try to stop you.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think on that note, I would imagine that just the competitiveness that I saw when I got to, be a fly on the wall in those games you used to run in the East Gym at Heck Ed
Hmm.
with all those, local guys,
Sure.
be it they play in Europe or in the NBA,
Yeah.
and talk about wanting to keep a guy from using their bag. I feel like for personal pride, there was a lot of that happening.
Yeah. I I'm gonna tell you maybe this lands with you, maybe it doesn't. But I'm gonna tell you a personal story that just happened for me the other day. Um, I represent a player named Brandon Brown from Tacoma. He's playing overseas now. He's 35 years old, somewhere near the end, right? And his team's in first place. He's played on a bunch of really high level good teams that have played for championships, won championships, and he's on one now. And he was playing against this day. He was playing against the last place team in his league, right? And he calls me after the game and says, "No, I just want to say thank you." I'm like, "Okay." He said, "No, man. I was telling myself in the game, we're playing the last place team, we're in first. I could easily be the 35-year-old guy just cruising and going through the motions and still get this win. But I could hear your voice saying, get up, meaning pick up full court.
Mhm.
We demand that every single day when we're in the gym, we pick up full court. It's just a part of the mentality, a part of the mindset. It's just what we do, right? And so he says he picked up full court instead of being a 35-year-old guy who just kind of took it casually and got through it. And he had 9 steals that day because he said he could hear my voice screaming at him, get up, right? And so that's the thing that like I take great pride in. That's something that matters to me. That's something that I'm glad I was able to give to somebody,
Mhm.
right? Whether it was one somebody or two somebodies, uh, but just anybody. I love to give. I love to be a part of that, and that's what you saw in that gym. It's just guys competing their butts off, right? Because at the end of the day, I want whenever somebody mentions my name, what do I want said,
Mhm.
right? And I try to challenge these kids, these young men, to like, what do you want said when your name is mentioned?
Mhm.
So you get to choose, but it's how you show up.
Mhm.
And it starts right here in this gym, not in the game when everybody's watching. No, what you do here will determine what you do there,
Mhm.
right? So build those habits, do it daily. Let this become who you are, not just what you do, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's it's clear that that's who you are and that's what you give. Who gave that to you? Who instilled that in you?
Man, there's so many people I would have to give credit to. I mean, we'd be here all day. I mean, I could talk about really. I mean, I played for CAY growing up. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what that is or who that is or Central Area Youth Association. If you're from Seattle
Mhm.
and you grew up here during the time I grew up here, it was everything.
Mhm.
It was maybe the closest example I could give would be Rotary.
Okay.
Um, and I have no desire to slight Rotary in any way. I love those dudes. Completely respect those dudes. But CAY was maybe something even greater. Um, it was incredible, man. And so if you came up through every single guy, if you were anywhere in this area and you played, you wanted to be on one of those CAY teams.
Mhm.
Um, and you just Will played for CAY on the team 1 year younger than me. Jimmy Haywood played for CAY on a team 1 year older than me. And the names are I could Jason Terry played for CAY. Lavelle Brown played for CAY. The list is endless, right?
Yeah.
All of us in this area grew up playing for CAY,
Mhm.
and I think that's where it started because we got a chance to see the guys in front of us, the guys behind us, and you had to hold that standard. I remember our group going down to the AAU Nationals in Memphis. It's one of the best moments of my life. We were able to take fourth at the AAU Nationals, which at that time had never been done by a team from Seattle. So it was like being in those moments, being in those having those opportunities, playing on those stages. It just builds like a certain uh, level of pride, and that's what you take with you. I had great coaches on. You probably don't know a guy named Obi Johnson, but my teammate's name was Teo Johnson. He played at Mariner, was a
Mhm.
heck of a player out at Mariner.
Oh, I remember Teo. Yeah.
Yeah, six
Yeah.
seven. Went on to play at Stanford, both basketball and football.
Mhm.
Played in the NFL a little bit. Curtis Allen was on my CAY
Okay.
team. Um, I mean, my team was incredible, right? So when you're in groups like that, you're playing with teams that care that much, you really don't have a choice. You're representing your city, you're representing your state. It just means so much to you that there's what's left. You got to dump it all out there, right?
Mhm.
And so, and I will say, I don't know how this is gonna sound, but this is my truth, man. I think growing up in the central area of Seattle has something to do with all of it. Just building um, that kind of toughness that you're referring to. Uh, it's just kind of wildly competitive. Everywhere you turn, there's another dude you got to deal with, and
Mhm.
so either you're gonna go one way or the other. You're gonna you have an opportunity to wilt, right? And it's like the fight or flight thing they say, right?
Mhm.
And I'm going to choose to fight 100% of the time.
Mhm.
Uh, I think because of the way I grew up and the people I grew up around and all the many mentors I've had.
Mhm.
Yeah. Hopefully, I gave you enough names.
No, I mean that's amazing. Like this is like I love hearing these stories because there are enough people. Like I do go back far enough. Like I was playing high school basketball probably in the same, like my junior year was 98. And that's
Okay.
so, and that's kind of why, because I was playing, that was the one time I played in the state tournament, in the 2A tournament, when Jamal and Dave and little Will, like little freshman Will were,
That's what we called him at the time, Little Will.
it
Yeah.
was, I was like, man, that's like, yeah, that is, because you recognize and then
Yeah.
to see then and now, um,
Crazy.
it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to put you back in the time machine again for a little bit, what do you like, what's a memory or two of your time playing high school ball here
Mm.
that stands out?
I mean, quite a few. Um, I probably I probably have to mention this because anybody who's going to talk about Alvin Snow is going to mention this. So I, everybody wants to talk about the Rainier Beach game.
Hmm.
My senior year Um, and I'll hear, you know what I'll do? I'll give you the truth because legend has it that I scored, the number changes every time I hear it from somebody, right? So I'll tell you the truth
Okay.
one time and one time only.
Okay.
Okay. So we were down to Rainier Beach my senior year. Uh, we're down, I believe, 21 at the half. I picked up three early fouls, one before the game started. I got a technical for dunking in the warmups, right?
Yeah.
And then I picked up two quick ones. So I played about 2.5 minutes in the first quarter and sat the entire half after that, right? So we go into halftime down 21. I go into the locker room clapping because I said, we're fine. We'll be just fine, right? Come out second half. I have 27 in the second half, finished with 30. Um, we come back and win the game. Um, but here's one of the cool things about this story, right? My girlfriend at the time was a cheerleader for Rainier Beach, right? She had actually never seen me play, right? So there's video of this floating around. At one point I got so hot that I was literally making every shot I could take, double pump threes and all kinds of crazy shots I was just making, right?
Mhm.
At one point I shot a step back three, right? Kind of fading out of bounds, knocked it down, bang. As I'm as I'm fading, I fall out of bounds and the cheerleaders are right there on the sideline. I get up on my way back down the court, kiss my girlfriend on the cheek, and run back on defense. I was crazy, man. I was crazy. But that's probably one of the better moments in high school for me. Yeah.
That's
If you, yeah, go ahead.
oh, I would say that's a like I love that story. And you said there is video. I can go find this somewhere.
There is video.
Okay.
And if you look in the Seattle Times, they call that game one of the best. What did they say? One of the top 20. I think they said top 20 games in history at that point. Right? It was
Hmm.
like an incredible game, incredible comeback, whatever. So
Hmm. And
yeah.
who was on that beach team?
On that beach team was my very close friend David Hudson. On that beach team was Tim Ellis. On that beach team was Logic and Roger Stewart. On that beach team was Nate Robinson. On that beach team was, I mean, I don't know which of these guys you know and don't know, but that's
Yeah.
kind of the main characters, right?
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
all those names definitely. I mean, some more than others,
Sure.
but yeah, no, I was, I was at UW when.
Ricky Frazier.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, and who was? Were there any other guys on your squad?
On my team, Aaron Brooks was a freshman.
Okay.
His big brother Alvertus, AJ Brooks, was a senior along with me. Trevor Suchikawa, my dentist. He was my point guard at the time. He also kind of got us going that day. Sunk a couple big threes to start the push. Um, yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, this is exactly what we talked about before we started recording, wanting to just tell these kinds of stories.
Okay.
This is gold for me. So, and I just love hearing about this stuff, right? Like that's,
Hmm.
kind of putting all the pieces together,
Sure.
and putting it in order because to me it's all a little fuzzy, right? Like which guys played here when, and
Right.
so to now kind of start putting it into like chronological order.
I'm
um
gonna send you the coolest link ever. I
okay.
don't. It allows you to access the score of every game, every high school basketball game in this area ever played. So
Mhm.
like you can see the score, the stats of every game. Like any game you could think of from maybe I don't know from early '60s or something that
Mhm.
far back to now.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna send you that.
Okay. Yeah, no, that'd be awesome. And just so anyone who follows this podcast knows that I am still on the free version of Zoom because until we start generating enough money, we're doing
Sure.
this as we can. And so we've only got a couple minutes left. Is there anything that we haven't covered historically, currently, that we should talk about?
Um, I don't know. I got one story I do want to tell.
Okay.
Coach Kerr and I spoke about this, so I'm going to share this with you. So my senior year, Garfield is undefeated. Okay, this is with Roy Dale Smiley, Ed Roy, Trey Simmons, Will Conroy, Marcellus Kemp. That whole team, they were
Yeah.
nuts,
Yeah.
right? Um, at one point in that game, um, we're at Gar. This is us at this Franklin at Garfield. You know, the biggest rivalry in the city.
Hmm.
They're undefeated. Um, there's time's ticking off the clock. I think we're down two. I come down and I make a three. Bong, and the buzzer goes off. They say, no basket. I'm thinking I just made the game winner. They
Hmm.
say, no basket. I'm like, what? They say, timeout. Coach Kerr called timeout. They wiped the basket, the game winning basket away. We come out, we end up losing. No shot goes in. So over COVID, Coach Kerr came to my house. We talked about this, and all these years later, I finally got an apology out of him.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I just wanted to share that. I don't know why, but I
I
wanted.
mean, like shout out to Coach Kerr.
Yeah,
Love you.
that's my guy.
Yeah, and I could see how it would be hard to get that apart. Like
Hmm.
although I will say, like all the guys around here, Mike Kelly, who was at Prep, now at
Yep.
Woodinville,
Yep.
Coach Kerr, everybody's softened a little bit. Like
Yeah, no question. No question.
you
Mike
know.
Kelly was is maybe hasn't won it, but he's one of the better coaches around here, no question.
Mhm.
He was actually at Redmond
Oh yeah.
when I was in high school, and he had those guys playing. One of the toughest games I ever played in high school was against his Redmond team at Redmond. That's probably the only full game film I have. At
Mhm.
so I watched that. I watched that probably I don't know 5 or 6 times, and really tough game. He can coach his butt off. Really respect, a lot of respect for him.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that's I'll say that. And now as you being one of them, the coaching around here is amazing. And and you guys all do a great job. So I appreciate getting to be a small part of it.
yeah. Appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
I have many more questions I want to ask you. So
you can.
I will invite you back and
Okay.
we will do this again. And until then, yeah, I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too, man. Go Lancers.